Hello, bass clarinet people of the internet. Today, I get to finally do a review of the Royal Firebird bass clarinet. I've actually been selling these on my shop for the past 8 months or so, along with its little brother, the Polaris, but they never stick around long enough for me to do a review. In fact, this one is already sold, but I have a little time with it to do this review before I ship it out today, so here we go. This is the Royal Firebird Low C bass clarinet, and I'll open it up and show it to you in a second. But first, Royal. Who's Royal? Royal is a company that's based in Massachusetts and whose instruments are manufactured in their factory in China. They're a relatively new company, and I first heard about them about 7 or 8 years ago. When I first tried their instruments back then, I was really unimpressed. But they've continued to refine their designs and their manufacturing process and the quality of the materials, and now I'm impressed. Most new bass clarinet makers stick to the low end of the market, the student end of the market, but not Royal. They've decided to take a shot at the pro and semi-pro end of the market, and as such they've got to compete with big names like Buffet and Selmer and Yamaha. Though on the side I do have to say Yamaha Pro bass clarinets are a distant third in that group. Royal designs blow Yamaha Pro basses out of the water, so I'm not even going to mention those again in this review. Sorry Yamaha. Anyway, because Royal doesn't have the history or brand recognition that Buffet or Selmer does, they've had to do the obvious thing to get their instruments into people's hands. Lower the price and have a better warranty, and they've done both. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you the Firebird, and we can see how it stacks up against the big guys. Starting with the case, it is the exact same case as the Royal Polaris comes in. It's water-resistant nylon, it has top and side handles here, it has backpack straps here, it has a zipper enclosure, and it's made of molded open cell foam. You know, my favorite comment about this case is from a friend of mine who said, "This is the most okay bass clarinet case I've ever seen." And that's pretty much my take too. It's a decent case and you'll be reasonably happy with it. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it has some. It's not heavy or light, it's not attractive or ugly, it's not super protective or unprotective, it's fine. The inside of the instrument case is covered with velvet, and it has room for a few accessories right here. This is where the mouthpiece will go. By the way, it does not come with a mouthpiece, so if you don't have one, you'll need to get one. The instrument itself is pretty well immobilized in the case so it doesn't jiggle, and simply all that means is you will likely spend less time at the repair shop because the instrument won't go out of adjustment as quickly. Now, as I put together the instrument, I'll give you a tour of the parts and show you how it's different from the Polaris, since those of you interested in this instrument will probably want to know what makes it $2,000 more expensive. So I'll start with the neck here. This neck is designed with stabilizing fins on the top and the bottom. And the idea behind these is that you want the neck to send vibrating air into the wood as efficiently as possible. Low quality necks can self-vibrate, which means that the energy generated by the reed and the mouthpiece, they escape through the neck and they don't make it into the wood. So the stiffer and the heavier the neck, the theory goes at least, the less energy is wasted. Now this may sound like some mumbo jumbo, but I actually have to say it makes a difference. So Royal adds the top and bottom fins on this neck to stiffen it, and then it adds a grenadille wood resonator which sits over the tuning slide. And you can take it on and you can move it and you can take it off if you'd like. But to be honest, I don't really hear much of a difference with this resonator. I have seen other resonators though made by Brian Corbin that do make a difference, so your mileage may vary here, but compared to the Polaris neck, this one is far superior. Now as I assemble the neck into the top joint, you'll notice a nice bit of detail here. This is a Cocobolo ring that is glued to the Blackwood tenon socket. I'd argue that it's pretty cosmetic, but you know, it's a look. The other thing that you'll begin to notice is that all of the posts are gold-plated. Now the posts are the part of the keys that actually go into the wood itself. The keys attach to the posts and the posts are inserted into the wood. They're either screwed into it or they're screwed onto it. And a number of people in the clarinet world believe that the type of metal that goes into the wood itself makes a difference in its response. I can't say for sure. I don't think it makes a noticeable difference, but again, it is a nice look. Probably the most obvious difference between the Polaris and the Firebird is this bell. It is a Cocobolo wood bell, and it is removable in case you want to swap it for a metal bell, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the wood bell, you'd think maybe that it would have the most effect on the low notes, like the low C, and it does have an effect. But in my opinion, it actually helps to focus the instrument in the clarion register and in the altissimo register, which makes it a lot smoother and buttery sounding. You know, there is a downside. The low notes don't project the same way. And I have had composers, I had a wood bell for many years that Bakun made for me, and they asked me to swap the wood for the metal, but like I said, fortunately, Royal makes that very, very easy by putting a cork on this, and they sell separately a metal bell that fits into the same receiver. So I don't think it's terribly expensive to get the second bell, and so then you have the option of the two bells when you're in different playing situations, which I think is pretty cool. In terms of materials, the neck and the bell of both the Polaris and the Firebird, and when I talk about the Firebird, I mean the receiver of the bell here, they feel thinner and lighter material than the Selmer or Buffet. This makes how you put the mouthpiece on your neck especially important. If you do not provide back pressure, so I'm pushing against the mouthpiece, when I put the mouthpiece on, the neck will break. Okay, finally, after all of this introduction, let me give it a quick blow and you can hear how it sounds. Wow, so the low C is very reminiscent of the Buffet Prestige because it has the same bell structure, right? So there's a vent right here in the bell, just like there is in the Prestige. And I think I mentioned in the last review, this and the Polaris are both clearly based on the geometry of the Prestige, so it's not a surprise that that also is included. But you can hear that really bright low C. As you'll hear on the Selmer, that C is a little bit more covered on the Selmer because it doesn't have the vent. In terms of the sound, I think the Firebird fits somewhere between the Buffet and the Selmer. It's not as compact as the Buffet Prestige, and it's not as dark as the Buffet Tosca. It's also not quite as bright or free-blowing as the Selmer. Now let me play some loud and soft passages. Maybe I'll do some excerpts so that you can hear how the instrument responds across dynamic range and registers of the instrument. I'll start with something loud like Stravinsky. Yeah, it's got a nice bark to that. Whew. Yeah, so it's really even across the registers. Let me try something quiet. Yeah, so it's got a nice, smooth, dare I say, velvety, quiet end to the instrument. So it barks when it's loud. It's smooth when it's quiet. It's really nice. You know, the sound of this instrument isn't for everybody. It's not actually for me, but it is a very flexible sounding instrument with the right mouthpiece and setup, of course. So, you know, I probably could make this work the way I needed it to, with just given a little bit of practice. I have been extremely impressed with this instrument as I've played them. They're very consistent, and they have a very, very nice range of timbre and volume and sound. So that's pretty great, actually, to have an instrument at this price range that performs that way, because most of the lower end instruments simply, you can't get a lot of volume out of them. They're resistant in certain registers but not others, and the Royals in general, both this and the Polaris, don't have that problem. They're very very consistent. The Polaris, if you'll recall, had amazing intonation. So let's give the Firebird the same intonation test. I'll put this tuner on here. I can't see it because I did it in post, but you'll be able to see it as I play the chromatic scale, and I won't be adjusting because I can't see it. So let me just go ahead and do that. Seems a little sharp. I'll see you later. ahead and took a look at that through the tuner, and yeah, it is a little bit sharp in the clarion register, but it is controllable with embouchure, which is good, right? So I'm not having to throw down a ton of keys in order to get it to play in tune. Okay, here comes the fun part. Right here in my hands, I have a brand new Buffet Prestige, a brand new Selmer Privilege, and this brand new Royal Firebird. Now, this Selmer is not mine. It is a stock instrument that I've had overhauled. This is a Buffet that I've had overhauled, and of course this is the Firebird that I've had overhauled. So they're all in perfect condition, which will give me a good opportunity to try them back to back to back. And what I hope to do is give you the best opportunity to hear the differences between them. So I will do this three-way test. You won't know which order I'm playing them in, and you'll have to figure it out for yourself. So I'm going to turn off the lights in 3, 2, 1. All right, could you guess? Could you hear the difference? Well, let me tell you the answers. The first was the Firebird. The second one I played was the Selmer Privilege, and the third one I played was the Buffet Prestige 1193. So there you have it. All right, now let's talk about the price. The Firebird goes for $8,800. The Selmer and Buffet go for about twice that, right around $15,000 or $16,000. So you may be asking yourself, I can hear it from here, why is the Firebird so inexpensive? What am I giving up by buying it? Well, you're giving up a few things. You're giving up metal quality, and you're giving up a little bit of craftsmanship. There's no question that the quality of the metal on this instrument, the alloy and the plating and the key work, is not quite as good as the Pro models. You're giving up the name recognition, which may affect the resale value of the instrument if you're worried about those kinds of things. People like the brand names. You're a bit of a guinea pig because Royal is not a company that's been around for 180 years, and we just don't know how the instruments will hold up season after season. But what are you getting? What's on the plus side? Well, you're getting an instrument that, at least in its initial quality, is nearly indistinguishable from the Buffet Prestige, and it's starting to approach the quality of the Selmer too. I'm sorry, I'm biased, but the Selmer is still the best bass clarinet on the market, in my opinion. Well, you're getting an instrument that has all of the features of the Pro models, with a few that none of them even have yet, like the wood bell and the reinforced neck and the Cocobolo resonator. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Hyundai cars, but back when they came out, they had to contend with the same kind of perception of lower quality. They were and are good cars, so they just, in order to get over that perception, they had to offer the best warranty in the business, and Royal is doing the same. I don't mean to compare Hyundai and Royal, I'm just comparing the warranties. Selmer and Buffet have like a 1 or 2 year warranty. Royal has a 3-year warranty, and I've personally seen the warranty service they provide when something happens to one of their instruments. I sold an instrument that developed a key wobble, and they replaced that key in under a week. I had another where a cosmetic piece of wood chipped or cracked, not even the instrument body, and they replaced the whole instrument for free. They get it. I have been so impressed with their service and the speed with which they solve problems when they arise. So you can tell I'm a fan. Would I play one of these instruments myself? Yeah, I would. Do I like it as much as the Buffet? Yeah, nearly. I can still tell the difference in the material quality. And do I like it as much as the Selmer? Well, no, but I told you I'm biased. I play a Selmer instrument all the time. Is it a step up from a $3,000 student bass clarinet? Absolutely yes. It's not even close. So who do I think should buy this instrument? Well, I think anyone who wants to have an instrument that starts to approach a pro bass clarinet in quality, but for half the price. It is a great option for college students, doublers, semi-pros, and hobbyists who want high quality but don't need pro quality. And frankly, I just love that there is now a brand serving this part of the market. It's been needed for a long time, especially as the cost of pro instruments have just crept up and up and up. So I very much appreciate that Royal is working at this part of the market right in the middle and producing instruments that are excellent instruments and terrific, terrific values. As always, thanks in advance for your comments and questions down there, or you can email me at any time at earspasm.com. And if you're interested in buying one of these instruments, you know where to find me. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye.